Okay, I think we're on. I think we're on! Yay!
Wow.
Okay, so we are currently on this introduction screen, so nothing is going on there, just us two. Can someone check if the stream is actually live?
Okay.
Who do you address?
It's
Yeah, just give me a second. Because I don't see
it
any...
is.
It is live. Okay, nice. Should post something on Discord as well, in the stream notification. Okay, so anyways, hello everyone. Nice to see you all. It's been a month since we last streamed, I guess. But today is a very special stream because we are going to talk about the new features that are about the new updates and the new features that are going to be present there. And also joining us today is Alex, the CTO of Cascadeur, and Roman as well as the last time. So, Alex, anything you want to say?
Hi everybody. Well, I'll try my best presenting the physics part of the features. I'm not an animator though, so the animations won't be great, but I use some prepared in advance animations, so I'm cheating a bit here. Yeah, but I think as I see it, my goal will be to explain how the features work, what are the settings that control them. So it will be a bit of in-depth, not too in-depth, I hope. So, yeah.
Well, I can't say that, you know, we're cheating. So these are the scenes that we've been testing, you know, our animations on. So it's only fair to just share it with, you know, the rest of the Cascadeur users and, yeah, show them what's what. And Roman, how are you doing?
Hello everyone, I'm doing great. Life is fantastic and I'm very excited for the upcoming 2024.2 release of Cascadeur.
Okay, did we pay him to say that?
Yeah, I'm getting paid every month.
Certainly did.
Okay. So what? Without further ado, I think we can jump into this stuff, right? So, okay, look, I'm gonna share your screen here, and let's see what happens. Okay, give me a second. Yep.
So you will tell me when it's live, yes?
Yes, it's live.
Okay. So just a couple of words about features, especially physics features in general. We have 3 new physics features. One of them is a separate tool, separation of motion. I'll talk about it more later on. The other 2 are like features in the main part of the AutoPhysics tool in the physics corrector, but they are very big, at least on the implementation side. So yeah, and I want to start with interaction between characters. So, well, the idea is pretty simple. Before the update 2024.1, we didn't have any other interaction, only with the ground. In the 2024.1, we introduced interaction with various, I would say, speaking in technical terms, kinematic objects, where a character can jump on a cube, but the cube will not move. And now we introduce interaction between characters. So I'll show them on the prepared scenes. Let me switch this smooth trajectory off first. So suppose I have a scene like this. It's very simple, consists of 3 frames. First frame where the second character is in the air, then it goes down on the hands of the first character, and then he just stands there for the whole animation. So right now, of course, this is how the animation looks. Now let me turn on AutoPhysics.
So while it's calculating, right? So before that, I know that we had a separate tutorial on how to get the characters to
interact with
each other, yeah. And that was like all the process of going into combining their center of mass and calculating physics for that combined center of mass. So as far as I understand, this new feature just evaluates the points of contact, more precise points of contact between the characters, and you do not have to create like the common center of mass or stuff like this. So it's done fully automatically, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
That was a really scratchy workaround where you had to run for the part of the animation you ran the AutoPhysics for both characters that were calculated as a whole, so they couldn't actually move relative to each other. They just moved as a whole formation, and then around that, before and after the interaction, you had to run physics for each of the characters separately. So you had to do it like at least 3 times, usually 5 times, and yeah, that was a crutchy way to do it. But now it's much easier. Yeah, and this is the way forward that we're gonna move. And it's actually, we didn't test it too much on such scenes, but for example, you might have a scene where the character is juggling something, I don't know, balls. And before, you would have to create ballistics interaction for each of the intervals, so it would be a lot of extra work. Right now, what you do is you just set the colliders correctly, and yeah, we'll have to talk about the colliders in a second. But before that, I wanna just show you the result, how it will look. You can see that there's and in the view mode we don't see anything. Let me switch back to the autoposing mode. Here you can see this blue circles. They show that these points are actually interacting with some other characters. So the green circles show that the character is interacting with the ground. The blue ones show that we are interacting with another character. And you also see on the timeline this light blue color. It's also an indicator that there is some interaction between characters. And this is how the result looks. And you can see that the character falls correctly, lands on the hands, and you can see that the center of mass moved for the characters not to fall down. And we can actually, it doesn't sit down too deeply, so we can turn on smooth trajectory, and basically in the characters interaction scenario, the 2 things that actually work with it are physics character and smooth trajectory. The other tools, they just work on each character separately. So yeah, maybe we will make the behavior more complicated in the future, but for now this is how it works. But these 2 tools, they are redesigned now to work with character interaction.
Cool.
So yeah, so that's how you can see how it works. The hands go down a bit because this character is standing on them. The legs bend, and yeah, overall we have speed that is more suited to keep them in balance.
Can you also like put them, layer them on top of each other so we could see the difference between the gray and the green? Because right now it's a little bit on the left. Just keep it towards the right. Yeah, good.
Yeah. So you can see how AutoPhysics restores balance and how they interact. And we actually were thinking, how do we do the interaction, and to make the animation physically correct, we have to move the characters somehow. And the question was, how do we move them? Because if two characters collide, what will move, etc. So right now how it works is the physics tool, it looks at what's called Fulcrum Groups. This is actually predefined for humanoid characters. For non-humanoid characters, you have to define them yourself. And for the humanoid characters, they are on the feet and the hands. And the logic goes like this. If two parts of the body with fulcrum groups interact with each other, here for example feet and hands interact, then the motion that will happen between the characters is shared 50% for the legs, 50% for the hands. So the character goes, this character has to go down, this character has to go left, but hands and feet, they take 50% of the motion of this character, 50% of the motion of this character, and they, relative to each other, they stay in the same position, because otherwise the connection will break. And yeah, sorry, I'm getting a bit into technical details here. I don't know how to.
But I think it's like it's interesting to know, because I think the more you know about what was the logic, what was the original logic behind the tool, right? The more correct your expectations of it would be, right? And the more precise you would understand how you can use it,
the better you will be able to use it. Yeah. So I just made another example here to demonstrate the difference. So suppose the character is fallen again, but not on the hands, but on the shoulders. And then let me turn on AutoPhysics. And we'll have this result. And you can see here, let me show the trajectories. They're a bit crowded. Okay, without trajectories. You can see here that now the shoulders, they don't bend, they don't move. That's because there are no fulcrum groups on shoulders by default. And then only the feet are moved relative to this character. The shoulders are not moved.
So
all the interaction goes on the feet of the fallen character.
Okay. So I mean, with the example where, you know, two fulcrum groups collide, they sort of like share the forces, right, that apply there. But if and I guess here's the question. So what about their heads or torso, right? Just thinking about the impacts of horizontal trajectory versus this vertical example. So if you like push the character in the torso, it's not gonna kind of like share this impact.
Yes. Well, the character himself might move somehow, but we have to, when this character moves relative to this character, we have to keep the points of contact together.
Mm-hmm.
And so the character might move. It actually moves a bit here, not too much, but you can see some of the movement. But the shoulders will not move relative to the character.
Oh,
and so the torso and the head also won't move, because if they did, then usually it breaks the pose. So this is not more about how they move all together. They can move in different ways, but it's more about how to keep the interaction going. The parts of the character move relative to the other parts of the same character, and we have to move something, and we move the fulcrum groups, and for humanoids that means feet and hands.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also here, I think it's important to see the like the way the updates are coming, right? So if before there was literally no interaction between the characters, right? So you had to combine the center of mass. Now all those things are done for you, right? So the character now has all those colliders around there. Like you can check it you can see it probably in the rig mode, right? So now it detects automatically, you know, where the characters come in touch with the body, with, you know, the hands, the legs, all the body parts. So it's already, you know, taking the lift off of doing things manually to automating them, right? So at least it's one step closer to, you know, more contact animation and stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think this is, I would say the overall result that the tool gives can be improved. So that's why we actually call it an alpha version of character interaction. But on the UX part, a lot of it is ready, and it's definitely much easier than working with this. How do we call them? Actually, I forgot. Composite centers of mass.
Composite center of mass, yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, one of the things we didn't mention anywhere, but before we had AutoPhysics, we actually had what we call ballistic tools. So in like 2020, when we had the closed beta versions, we started actually with only visualization of the physics parameters, like the angular momentum, the center of mass trajectory, and some of those tools got really old, so we moved them from the toolbar, but you can still activate them. I think there is a toolbar settings or something like that, and there you can activate.
Solid Cloud says, "Yep, I remember using those for reference initially." Well, I think this is pretty much what you can use AutoPhysics for. You know, for referencing your animation, you do not have to apply it, right? You can use it as just a reference tool.
Yeah, definitely. We tried to make it work more and more intelligently, so you can just apply. But a lot of times, if you don't want it to mess with your poses, you can just look at it and move your poses in the same direction as it suggests, and then by the way, I found them here are in the settings window, which you can now put inside the main interface.
Not a very good placement for the stream, but yeah.
Okay, sorry about that, but here you can turn on back the ballistic trajectory tool.
Okay, it says ballistic trajectory tool and something else tool underneath it.
Composition, and this is not this wasn't connected with physics. The physics was this ballistic trajectory tool.
I can quickly switch off the cameras so you can guys see what we're doing here.
I didn't think they are so big. But okay, let me put away the settings window, close it, and I just wanted to show the interaction on a bit more complex example. So here's the animation. And
wait, is it actually, because it's a bit of it's a bit of a slideshow for me. I'm not sure if it looks the same for you. Yeah, can you play it back once again? Yeah, now it's better.
I can show it.
This is the animation that we used for our tutorial back in the day.
For the tutorial, yeah. So suppose I turn on AutoPhysics. I think it's changed a bit to actually be able to demonstrate AutoPhysics. Honestly, this is not one of my creations. So, and you can see here. Yeah, let me turn on auto pausing and switch show this back. So you can see here the interaction points, the shoulders and the head.
Uh-huh.
And you can also see what AutoPhysics does. And here, one of the things that are very not obvious, I think, when using AutoPhysics is that AutoPhysics it's an intelligent tool. So it's an intelligent tool, but it doesn't know the whole situation. It's not like a supermind that understands that there are two characters who are fighting, etc. All it knows is that there are two characters, they interact, they have this animation here, and I need to make them move physically correct and as close to the original animation as possible. And when we're talking about characters interacting with each other, a lot of times that means that the other character, for example, the one being grabbed here, will play along as a real Cascadeur. He will play along to help the character who grabs him, which is not intuitive looking at the scene overall. But it is how the tool thinks. The tool doesn't know who is attacking and who is not. And
let me help you, love, right?
yes, and just pushes forward to get in the correct position to then be thrown around. So what can we do here? We can use, most of the times what you can do is you can use priority frames. So we understand that, yeah, this frame should stay approximately as it is right now. So it shouldn't change. So we can put a priority frame here. Is that a priority frame? And now the physics tools know that, okay, this frame should not be changed. And you can see that it actually keeps it very accurate.
And again, so once before, right? So all we see now on the timeline where the blue, light blue stripe is, which means there's contact there, right? Before that, you had to have like this combined center of mass, and then you had to manually calculate physics for the combined center of mass for that particular interval, right? And then you had to calculate physics for both characters separately after that. So that's what this tool does. So it understands that there's contact, it does those things automatically. So yeah, it's much easier now than it used to be.
Yeah.
And now that tutorial is outdated and it has like what, 80,000 views plus?
Yeah, it has a crazy number of views. Just want to show that, sometimes when we're showing physics, the animation does look better if you apply it, but it's not that easy to just look at this two, interactions, animations, and understand what is going on. But actually, if we remove the offset, then you can see how it works. Because here it cannot fall like that if we lose balance. So it does change, tweak it here and there to make it realistic. Yeah. Okay, I think these are the predefined examples. I don't know, if there are some questions on this tool, maybe I can answer them here, or we can just go forward to other physics features.
Yep.
Not specifically about this tool, but specifically about the composite center of mass. Since you said that previously we had to use composite center of mass to accurately calculate such interaction animations, right now, do they still have some use, and what use would that be? When would you be using and creating consciously composite center of mass?
I think when you have, for example, a character with weapons, and the weapons are actually they stay in the hands. We didn't test this scenario too much. I think you could use composite center of mass just to keep the whole system as one character. Although by default, if you just rig the character, only one center of mass will be created anyway, so they won't be separate. But in these cases, maybe you want to switch between them a bit more easily. If you have like a rig setup and you do have the composite center of mass, and you have separate centers of mass for the weapons and the character, so by default you activate physics, it activates the whole system. But if you want, you can select the individual centers of mass and activate physics, and then it will in some animations where the character, I don't know, throws the swords around. So, but I think we will be working towards eliminating this composite centers of mass in the future.
There's a question if there were any changes to the fulcrums for this example versus the first one. So I think before you were talking about the fulcrum groups, right? So in this case, how those fulcrum groups
Here, I think none of this have fulcrum groups. So they just, in this case, we don't change the pose, and I think the parts of the character actually slide a little bit against each other, which is better than grabbing them and moving them around. Oh wow.
Okay,
so
I see.
Here both parts don't have fulcrum groups, and when the physics moves them relative to each other, which doesn't happen too much here because there's a lot of interaction, so they actually have a lot of weight to move together. But if it did, it would slide one relative to the other. This. Hard to say if it happens here a lot. I hope I'm correct, but honestly, I'm not 100% sure. But I think that's how it works.
Okay.
If it doesn't, I'll go write a comment later on.
Okay, I guess that's it for this topic then.
That's
Okay.
cool.
So let's move
And
on.
also, the next we could actually what I was the next question. How exactly do they detect the interactions with each other? The technology behind
By
it.
the way, yeah, thank you. Actually, I wanted to cover it, but I forgot. So we introduced colliders. Let me turn on physics. Turn off physics here. We actually introduced colliders. So now, when you're in rigging mode, you can set up the colliders for the rigid bodies. They will be created automatically, but you can tweak their size. For example, here the head has not very accurate size. I think
the
changed it
brain has a
here.
collider now for Cassie.
Here you can see brain.
No, that was a smaller
yeah.
one.
Yeah. So I think we will enhance the automatic for the quick rigging tool creation of colliders, but we weren't able to finish that before the release. Oh, sorry. What was the other scene? This one.
Yeah, see? A little
Um,
capsule brain. Well, it's not
yeah,
a little,
yeah.
it's decent.
Yeah, but it doesn't have the correct form. So anyway, you'll be able to change them. You can actually go into rigging mode.
Nice.
Would you be able to change them, make smaller, larger? And,
Small note to our viewers, these collision capsules and collision boxes are part of the environment interactions. So if you want to test it out in the next 2024.2 version, you would only be able to do so if you have a Pro subscription plan. In the free versions, the environment interactions, they are not available. But you can still test it out. If you have a free version, you can claim a free 14-day trial license on the main website. You do that by, of course, you register and log in into your Cascadeur profile, and then you can claim it on the plans webpage. There's going to be a little button like claim trial license or something, and then you'd have your this 14-day trial license is going to be claimed on your account. The only thing that's different between Pro version and trial license is that it's time limited. Everything, all of the features, all of the tools, including export, of course, are included. So if you'd like to test out our new release, be our guest. Back to you, Alex.
We have to have like paid commercials by Roman.
maybe, yes. Roman is very professional.
Yes.
With this. So back to the question how we detect them. By the way, just wanted to mention that the interaction of character, well, there's no ragdoll for now, but interaction inside of one character or inside of one center of mass will be, like, in the future, if we do it, will be available in the free and indie version. But interaction between characters, yes, it will be only in the Pro version. So getting back to how we detect, it's a bit messy, but the idea is that we have this points, and as before, they have the called Fulcrum point, where we have collision radius and max speed, and that is tested relative to the colliders of the other character. Turn on the. So here actually only this
the heel
collider.
Right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Real quick, right, Alex? So the you mentioned something which is called Fulcrum Groups, right? So the difference between Fulcrum points, so each point in this skeleton, right? Each point in the rig actually has its Fulcrum points properties, right? But when you use the quick rigging tool, for example, to rig your character, some Fulcrum points are assigned into something that's called Fulcrum Groups, right? So which represent the each of the legs and each of the arms, right? So for the arms and for the legs, or for the hands or for the feet, to be more precise. So it can be done automatically if you use the Fulcrum, if you use the quick rigging tool, right? Or you have to do this manually. So for it to detect that these points, they belong to, for example, the foot, the left foot or the right foot and stuff.
Yeah. It's a bit more technical, so we don't, I don't know, hope it's okay I mentioned it here, but actually it's a bit under the hood usually. If you want to see like the Fulcrum group itself, you'll have to press this Show Hidden Behaviors, and then you can find on usually on the it's always placed on the top point in the hierarchy. You can find here the Fulcrum group, and here you can see the points that are actually assigned to this Fulcrum group.
Okay, nice.
We should add a button to select all of them, everything in the list. Okay, so yeah, that's how it works. And for humanoids, they're set by default. They're actually, they were always here, and they're used a lot in physics as well, because a lot of times you will not the whole foot will collide with the ground. What if like only this point collides with the ground? If we didn't have this Fulcrum Groups, even if we're talking about a very easy example where the character just, I don't know, the character is walking on the ground. Still, if we didn't have those Fulcrum Groups, then AutoPhysics would move the whole foot, only leaving this fulcrum point. And it will be something like this. So it will mess up the pose of the foot. Or if these two, for example, collide, then it will be something like this. So actually, when AutoPhysics applies its results, if there is a fulcrum group, then all the points of the fulcrum group, are left in the same position as they were.
Okay.
So this is the main reason for the fulcrum group to exist from the first place. But here we use them additionally in the character interaction in a bit of a different way.
All right.
So yeah, and so what is detected is the interaction between the point and the collider of the other character. So in this case, this point is colliding with this collider, and the point actually has a radius as well, so it will collide like when there's still some space between it and the collider capsule. So this is how they are determined. So if something doesn't work, you can increase this collision radius or maybe this max speed, but usually the speed is close to zero if the characters really interact with each other.
Cool. Okay,
yeah.
Guys, so it's been like over half an hour us talking about this particular feature, and I know we have a whole list to cover, so I suggest we move on.
Sorry, yeah, I asked you to stop me when I get too much into detail.
Stop! No, it's not you getting into much of a detail, but rather we have, more things to cover, so we have to go for it.
Yeah, or this can go forever. Okay, let me open a couple more scenes. So this is the interaction with what we call pin colliders. To do it, you have to. This is like a cube, so the character cannot push the cube. Only the cube interacts with the character. And to actually use this pin colliders, you have to add a collider on the cube. In this case, I already did it, but you can do it here. So what I did is like collision, add box, and then you have to go into the collision material. It will be surface by just switch it to pin. So surface is for materials when you step on something, staircase for example, or a wall, I don't know, off from. And when you grab onto something, you have to set pin, and then the character will interact with it in a different way. And I actually have several settings now. So we divided physics character surface interaction and pin interaction. And pin interaction has the switcher with rotation turned on by default, because usually when you grab onto something, what you expect for the character motion is to be like rotating around that thing. So if I turn on AutoPhysics now,
So let me get this straight. Just to simplify what you just said. So now you can create a collider, right, for say a box object or any object in the scene, right? And now you have two types of collision. So one was the surface as it used to be before. So for example, if the character sits on it, if your character walks on this surface, right, that's the surface one. And the pin, if the character grabs it and sort of like a bar or like a rope or something like this.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Technically speaking, those two surface materials, they were even in the previous update, but with the rotation, the solution with rotation, which is really good for the pin material, wasn't working well enough.
Okay.
And they were not separated, so maybe they were in some very, very early alpha. But now they work, and they work correctly. Again, it can, like, I'm not sure how. Yeah. Again, this is like AutoPhysics. I actually understood that, but it was too late already. That most of my examples include like character hanging onto something, and here he is moving a bit proactively. So here, for example, he's starting to swing forward, which might be kind of counterintuitive, because you could say that, okay, if something just starts to move, then what we expect for the character to do is to swing backward.
Yeah, fall back from the
this
animation, yeah.
Yeah. And if you wanna this kind of behavior, you should probably use secondary motion. Let's see how it works, by the way. In this scene I didn't test it. Doesn't work too well. Okay, I'll show it on separate scene instead of going. You'll have to change this secondary motion parameters for it to work correctly. But you can do that with secondary motion. If we're talking about physics character, then it will try to follow the animation that you have in the scene. So what I have here is for the character just to be hanging straight down. So it tries to hang straight down as close as possible to the original animation, and to do that, it applies some starting speed here. It actually applies some force to the cube to move correctly, to be close to this position. But that also means that, unlike secondary motion where it would just hold, I don't know, it would just
keep the
fall
pose
back.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, here, the main difference and the main pro is that you're actually able to set some poses which are more complex. Let's try it, by the way. I didn't try too much. But okay, suppose we want it to go forward here.
I think
so if it was kind of a ragdoll, it would just fall back. But here it will actually change the animation. It doesn't fall. No. Yeah.
I think a really good example there is that at some point we were testing one of the animations where the character was like a mocap animation of a character sort of hanging from a rope or something like this, right? And there was some movement there. There was some, the character was moving around, so it was like a mocap, looking nice. And the interesting thing was that after that we were able to apply, move the character around while they were grabbing onto this surface, and it will sort of like keep the original mocap data there, but also augmented with secondary motion, compensation motion, and stuff like this. So it's a kind of like a mix between the two, right? So it doesn't do stuff like ragdoll, but it does add things to your animation without, like destroying it. So if you have some there, it will just put some physics filters on top of that.
Yeah, well, it's also very useful if you want to jump off or perform some other acrobatics. So it will try to follow the original animation. It will try to get the character into some place. Okay, this looks a bit more like it. So you can kind of see how the character is, I don't know how to say it. He's using his muscles and force to keep close to the original animation. And it's not a very easy task, so somewhere he has to fall back, somewhere he does something beforehand.
I think that example that you showed us before we started the stream was actually a very good demonstration of.
Okay, let's move to it, because just the animation overall is better here. I think it was this one. It's a bit long.
Well, it takes a while because there's like 500 frames for it to calculate.
Yeah.
By the way, while it's calculating, I do see a question from Nathrakas about stuff falling through the floor, and we will address it a bit later in the stream. So yeah.
But yeah, again, that's you can see actually how the character gets ready here. The character actually swings forward to get ready for this motion, so it doesn't carry him away too much. And here, again, starts beforehand, even goes to the left first, then to the right, and then there's a really fast motion of the bar that still drags him away. Again, if you want, for example, the character to keep straight here, you can always put a priority frame. Alright, it'll take again a lot to calculate, and then it will calculate.
But here's the thing also, right? Something that we mentioned earlier on, that you can also calculate physics for specific intervals, right? So if you don't want it to get ready for this movement, right? You can just limit the area that or the interval that you are using AutoPhysics for to just when this movement starts, thus not giving it enough time to actually predict what's going to happen then. And yep, so be mindful of the fact that you can use physics, in separate intervals separately.
You can see here it wasn't able to hold on to the pose like 100%, but 99%. I don't know, 98% accuracy. Was able to do. It does cheat a bit still, because it gets into this pose, but it has some speed already, so it swings forward, has some speed that is compensated. Yeah, but you can make him go into any pose. By the way, in these scenes, there's also some compensation motion and secondary motion turned on, which actually make it a bit more pretty and give some of this like ragdoll secondary motion effect.
Okay.
Okay, I'll show this one briefly, and I'll go to the next feature because I already took almost an hour. This is just some example of another example of how this couldn't be used. Let me first show the original animation. So you can see it's
Yeah, it's moving
out.
with polars. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And here this is what AutoPhysics calculated. It's a bit clunky, so a lot of times you have to apply AutoPhysics and then, I don't know, unbake and put some interpolation to make it more smooth. But you can see that it actually, this is way more physically realistic.
I'm noticing, right? So because it has like what 10 frames to sort of like prepare for the next move, right? So it has enough time to kind of like stop itself and then again push it. The character has time to push himself towards like the next towards the next move. So I'm curious if yeah, it's like if you shrink those, yeah, shrink those intervals.
Test that.
You'd probably then be much more seamless with. It was something like, I remember there was a shorts about hopscotch, right? And so if you jump from like cell to cell, and you don't have that much time in between those, like when you stop there, it gives you like a seamless movement. But then if you have too much time there to stand on one cell, it sort of like bounces, and then you know like bounces again to initiate the other hop.
Yeah.
So it could probably work the same here as well.
Maybe yeah. To be honest, I didn't test this. Just got this animation. It actually looks better.
Yeah, because it's sort of like it doesn't have to stop. And if you think about this motion in real life, so you normally would keep your inertia there and just go with the flow. So you would just like the way you walk, right? So you just have a constant speed or something like this, and then you just make sure you grab the bars. Okay, cool.
Although this is in highlights, Max, so I don't know. You didn't fix it for the highlights.
I was voicing over the highlights. I was not making the scenes. It was not my job. But you're welcome.
I love it when people just before the release notice something and say, maybe you can fix this. And like the build is ready, the release is tomorrow morning, and like, oh, by the way, maybe we could also fix this. And I'm like, what? Please.
Let's quickly do this before release.
Yes. Love to do stuff just before the release. Okay, never mind. We will not redo the.
But I'm very much sure that these things is like a common scenario for, you know, lots of companies where the head of the company or the head of the chief departments do not really understand what goes into the process of, you know, just adding things or making them work. So it would be like a common scenario of, you know, let's make a couple of quick fixes, you know, which require a complete work over everything that had been done so far. So
yeah.
Luckily, it's not the case with Cascadeur.
Sure, that's for sure. Okay, so let's go through the last AutoPhysics feature, which is actually a new, I don't know how to say it, a new scroll here, a new feature that works separately and adds a different behavior, different motion. So I'll start with this scene. So this is a pretty Pretty simple scene. The character just stands for 25 frames, then he goes up, rotates 360 degrees, and stands again on the ground.
So the function is called separation of motion, right?
Yes. Actually, it is a bit like compensation motion in the sense that it moves the parts of the body relative to each other, unlike our main physics corrector or smooth trajectory. They actually move the character as a whole, and it's just the fulcrum points which are kept static because using IK, like in this animation. So the physics corrector actually moved it as a whole, but because we know these are like fulcrum points, these are fulcrum points, they're kept static, and using IK, just the pose holds on together. Compensation motion and separation of motion, they actually move the body parts. And compensation motion, its main goal, and for separation of motion it's actually the same, is to keep the angular momentum smooth and nice. Although separation of motion can also work with center of mass trajectory, but by default it just works with angular momentum.
Yeah. Show us what it does. Come on.
Okay.
It's like the anticipation grows. Like, what does it do?
So I don't know. I like this example, although it doesn't look that spectacular, but you can see that, but it's very easy to understand what it does here. So in the original animation, the rotation actually started very abruptly. So here there was no rotation at all. Here there was a lot of rotation, and when we're in the jump we cannot change our angular momentum, so we just have a constant rotation, and then we land, and again it's zero. And if we turn off separation of motion, AutoPhysics cannot actually do anything with it. So it just starts abruptly and ends. And if we turn on separation of motion,
so the upper body starts rotating before, right?
Beforehand, yes, yes. And this is like actually a term we use inside our studio, and used it before our animators used it. This is kind of a separation of motion in the sense that we separate on the timeline. The upper body motion goes to the left, so it starts beforehand. Then it transfers. The rotation of the arms and hands, it slows down and transfers this rotation to the legs and to the lower part of the body. And you can see that here the arms were much ahead in the rotation, and here the legs are already turned 360 degrees, and arms are like 90 degrees behind, and then it finishes the rotation. And then what this does, it makes the angular momentum much more smooth.
Another example that we saw was something like a cartwheel, right? Where you just rotate your character. Yeah, like this.
Yeah, I think I didn't take that cartwheel because I'm a bit tired of it. But here, this is something similar to cartwheel. So this is the original animation. You can see it's pretty straightforward. I don't know.
Ramus is asking when it's released. It's released tomorrow, so stay tuned.
If nobody finds any bugs at night.
Okay, let's vote, guys. Do you want us to look for bugs before the release? So it's gonna be delayed a week, or no?
Okay. Yeah. By the way, I wanted to say that what you can see here that the head keeps looking forward, which is probably a good thing here. But here, the head also tries to hold its global rotation. And we will have to switch that off. It's here in AutoPhysics apply, and I have to do it on the whole interval. So I turn on this apply on the selected interval, select the whole interval, and put it to 0.
So instead of putting in the numbers, now there's sliders everywhere, so which is cute.
Yeah. And this is what separation of motion does. Again, maybe I should turn it off at first to just show what AutoPhysics does without it. I'd say it's a bit too hard here. And you can always make the effect of the separation of motion smaller or larger using this slider. So 100%, it will do a lot of changes. 0, it will not affect the animation.
Can you keep playing it, because the picture is not of a good quality right now, but yeah, just to make sure that we get it in the video. Yeah, thank you.
You can see again how the character kind of compensates with the lower part of the body. Let me actually show it.
Cool. So yeah, the bottom line. Sorry, just one thing I wanted to mention. You said something very important. So when you use AutoPhysics, you have to understand that AutoPhysics by default does not really change the poses. It affects the character center of mass. It creates the ballistic trajectories. It takes into account the inertia and stuff. But those parameters, as I think, like compensation motion, separation now, and also smooth trajectory and
no, smooth trajectory also works with the trajectory of the center of mass.
Yeah, so those ones, they change the poses. Yep.
Yeah, these 3 last ones, compensation motion, separation of motion, and secondary motion, they do change the pose.
Yep.
Those change the pose only in the sense that they move the character as a whole, but the fulcrum points stay in place.
Right.
This is how they change it. That's a technical detail, but then what do we have the stream for if I can't go even in any technical details? Maybe you'll ban me next time.
No, I think it's just important. It's just important to realize what happens, or important to, again, to have your expectations and set right. So what happens when we turn on AutoPhysics, right? Okay, it doesn't change poses. It cares about, you know, the inertia and stuff like this. What happens when we turn on like separation motion? We see what happens here, right? So it's a cool thing to just know, I think.
Yeah, one more thing I just wanted to say about separation of motion, and then I'll pass on to Roman. And that is that you actually have to increase it, then it won't be able to turn the stomach as much, and it will turn the chest more.
So the more stiff they are, the less. Well, it's logical. Okay.
Yeah. It's like how strong are the muscles and how much do they keep it close to the original animation.
Actually, it's very useful. Yeah.
It actually changed how this additional rotation is distributed. Okay, I could say a lot about how we're going to improve all of this, but I think it's better to move on, or we won't be able to cover all the features.
We have a very good question. Can Cascadeur be used to create cartoon or stylized animation like Pixar or Disney? If so, any recommendation of the workflow? I think since we've been talking about, you know, physics a lot, and we've been mentioning things being physically accurate and stuff like this, It's something that Cascadeur can do, but it's like your own choice how you're going to use physics. I think at the very beginning of this stream, someone mentioned that they would use physics only as a reference, right? You can still do that. You can pretty much use the physics tools as your reference points to create, you know, accurate ballistic trajectories and stuff like this. See how characters would react to certain things, react to certain forces, but you do not have to actually apply it. You can, and by the way, Sash, you can probably show that you can freeze AutoPhysics, right? So you can, for example, once you use it, once you turn it on, you can then sort of freeze it so it doesn't update. Yeah, and in this case, you can just really remove all the offset, any offset between your character, and just use this as a reference and change the poses, say, manually. But then the idea is that you can say work in different kind of physics environments, like different gravity and stuff like this, and see how things are going to affect your animation or your character's animation, right? I think it should be a good point to mention.
Yeah. Well, then again, I think, like, of course, there are some times in such movies, there are times when, I don't know, a character runs off the cliff and he doesn't fall, but first, like, stays in the air or something like that. And for this, you don't need physics that much. Although when he later falls, he falls usually really physically correctly, or close at least. And for a lot of motions, okay, some of those things like secondary motion, they can help, like, and they're not actually about that much about animation being really physically accurate, but more about the effects you can just achieve, the overlaps you can achieve with secondary motion that you would otherwise have to do manually. So, and I think suppression of motion is actually a bit like this. So it changes the motion. You don't have to. You can turn on off physics corrector. And I remember when we were creating smooth trajectory, we also made it like one of the points was that you can use smooth trajectory without using the physics corrector. So it might not be physically accurate too much, but it will be smooth.
Since you mentioned secondary motion, right? There's, if you go into the settings for the secondary motion, there's, for example, you can use it as a tool instead of, you know, just sort of like giving you little shakes and trembles. You can change the air friction value, I think, and it sort of like makes the character's body parts sort of like fall back, and so you can use those tools in multiple ways. Not necessarily to get the physically accurate result, but then to augment the animation, right? And I think when we think about like stylized or cartoony animation, you think about like augmentation. Most of the times you talk about like squash and stretch, right? But the other thing is like sort of like augmenting the stuff to an extent, stylizing it, right? So you can do this with the tools, but you have to be kind of like creative with how you're using them. And Remus, no, we have not talked about blend shapes yet. It's coming up, I think, soon.
Okay, so I think I can finish my part and pass on to Roma, and then if we'll have any interesting questions about physics and we will have time at the end of the stream, I can go back talking about that. So I stop the share. Yes.
Okay, give me
sharing the screen.
Yeah, give me a minute. Give me a minute. I'll get the scene prepped up for Roman, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, and let's reconnect just quick.
Yeah, let's reconnect as well. Oh, I don't see it. Where is it? There. Accepted.
Okay.
Let me open up Cascadeur real quick, and also the scene. Maybe we can go ahead and address blend shape since there was a question like this. Here, what do you think?
You mean on my screen or?
No.
on your-
I'm asking Roman. What do you think?
Sure. Okay. Let's do that.
All right, then I have. Okay, let me check the stream real quick. So, Alex, do not turn your stream off. I'm just gonna switch your screen off there, and yeah. So let's set up a new scene real quick and import the blend shape animation. Okay, on you go.
Can I switch it off now?
Well, you do not have to, because next time we if we
Okay,
want
okay, I
to,
see,
you know,
I
like
see, yeah.
get you
Okay.
on screen, it will be very easy for me to just turn you on.
I see. Okay.
All right, Roman, do you have control?
Do I ever? Yes, I do.
Nice.
All right. So, those of you, well, yeah. First things first. Those of you familiar with the products of Neki, you can recognize this character. It's Redline from the upcoming a gun fu action game called Spine, and she's our fourth guest today. We're gonna tease her face a little bit to check out what blend shapes does she have as an example. So
Tease
when
her
you
face?
import a what?
No, just the phrase "tease her face." I was going to
No,
make
I
a
mean,
comment
you
about
know.
like another paid commercial on your end, but then I thought it was overruled by a red line teasing her face. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah,
She's
maybe
all
I
yours.
wanted to overline a little bit, but anyway. So previously in 2024.1 and previous version, you couldn't import character meshes that have the blend shapes in them. Now in 2024.2, up the upcoming one, almost out, you can do that. So first things first, what you do is always you import your scene, but as you can see in the import window, you now have this blend shapes bool. So when you import the scene, you turn on this blend shapes bool and import your scene, and blend shapes will be imported if you have any in the scene, in the mesh. So let's switch to the mesh mode and select her face. And if there are any blend shapes stored in the mesh, you will see them in the object properties. There will be a blend shape something behavior here. Let's unroll it. And as you can see, she has a lot of them, a lot of blend shapes, various ones. So in this file right here, we have some already. So for example, right here. Whoa, what a face!
She's a
So
bit
as you
yellow.
can see, yeah, she's yellow because she's selected. If I were to turn on this, that doesn't. Ooh.
I was just making comments to
Alright.
tip you off.
Whatever. Oh, you. Oh, well. Well, anyway, so as you can see, when you move the slider, subsequently, oh Jesus Christ, the mesh, it changes its topology, so to speak, and so you can do pretty much a facial animation if you have the blend shape stored in your mesh. And also, what else is there to say?
Well, you can't
It's a
create them
bit of-
right now, right? So inside Cascadeur, you can't
Yes.
create them, but they will be imported if your model is, if they are set up for the model elsewhere.
Yes, that's correct. You can both import and export them. Well, I mean, previously you couldn't. In the previous version, you could neither import or export the meshes that contained blend shapes. In 2024.2, you can do that. So,
Yeah, and if it's
yep.
okay, I just wanna jump into. You can change. You can animate the. What is like a blend shape? A blend shape means that you have another shape for the original mesh, and you can kind of switch between the default state of the mesh and this changed one. And a lot of times, if you're creating a character somewhere, then it will have blend shapes by default. So yeah, you can like use the sliders to actually get this blend shape to affect the result to some extent, from like 0 to 100, and you can do that with several of them. And if you interpolate, the sliders will, like in the interpolation, they just like any floats in the interpolation, they will interpolate as well. Now I'm thinking that I'm getting too technical again, but I just wanted to throw in the fact that what we have is only this blend shape representation, ability to change them, to animate them, but usually a lot of times people don't use it directly. They're like combined. So here you have like I don't know, 80 sliders. You want to combine them in the facial rig under like several of them into one slider, etc. Or you want them to affect the. Where's my camera? Okay, you want them to affect, for example, there are some blend shapes that will be turned on whenever you bend your elbow. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you want the blend shapes to be turned on when this, like, the angle is smaller than 180 degrees, and I don't know, then they turn on really fast closer to these angles. And so I would say that they're now here. You can manually animate them, but this is also a big step for us because it allows us in the future in our rigging tools to take control of the blend shapes and actually change something, add this additional behavior, add customization with blend shapes, and at some point we will attempt to add facial animation. It is on the to-do list, although rather a bit long term because of the size of the task, but we're definitely closer to it now that we have blend shapes. Yeah.
That is correct. And one more thing I would like to mention, but I'm not sure if it's okay. I mean, too much information. The fact that you can the blend shape sliders for floats, they are exposed in the node editor, and you can connect to them and connect them to other objects or controllers in the scene, and you can subsequently, if you are nifty enough, if you understand node editor, you can create quite simple like a facial rig using the controllers. So like you would have the usually, as you know, the facial controllers, they are located somewhere around here, like to the right or to the left of the characters, and you can do that same thing using the node editor.
We just got the question about whether it was possible to set the controls in the node editor, so you pretty much answered that instantly.
Sick. Mind reader. Spot on. What else is there? If you didn't notice already, the sliders have been introduced. Previously there were no sliders in Cascadeur. Now there are.
And they are everywhere.
They're everywhere. Yeah.
But for the blend shapes, we have
them.
tuned them a bit more. because when you drag, it doesn't immediately come into effect.
So it's not real time, right?
Let it go to, well, in physics, which is pretty slow, you actually don't want it to change while you're dragging it, because otherwise it will recalculate on each movement, but it will load your CPU. But here you would want it to work like that, so I think we'll get that by the next version, but yeah.
But I can say to you that if you were to connect the float of the blend shape to an external, so quote unquote external controller,
Slider,
and to slide around this controller, yes, it would update in real time.
Yeah. True.
Okay, it's getting too technical for me, but okay.
Anyway, you might have some old scenes where you would like to try you previously had some scenes where you had a regular float, and now you want to convert this float into a slider float. How can you do that? You can correct me if I'm wrong, Alex. So you would need to do is you go to File. There's this little button called Fix Scene, which is going to do its little magic.
So
and then you can continue.
Sorry, yeah. I just want to say that, with this fix scene, I think you fix the visibility and other stuff, because we pretty much refactored, what a scary word, refactored the logic in property editor and in how the representation properties of the data is stored. We changed that logic and now it's different. So you will have to press fix scene to fix the joints and the meshes, and for other things I would recommend to just go into rig mode and back, and that will recreate the whole rig, and it will be the current rig with all the correct properties.
Yeah, that's correct. Just go in and out of rig mode, Don't need to touch anything. It will regenerate your rig just like that. So the next thing on the agenda is the improved scene linking tool. A wonderful addition.
Give me a second. Before we do that, are you guys planning on making Cascadeur available on VR or AR? And I think we have something to say about AR, don't we? Alex?
Yeah, we do plan Cascadeur on Cascadeur Mobile, and it will come this year, hopefully, for the iOS, and probably next year for Android. And there we will have AR feature, which is embedded into the device. So it will be possible to do AR there.
Will AutoPhysics work for face animation? I'm just trying to think about. Is it like the coverted question of AutoPhysics for? Oh, okay, no, nothing. Alex.
Would my I think for the facial animation, all I can think about is some secondary motion.
Yes, for the cheeks.
Yes, but
for the
I
big
don't
lips.
think it will be too. Maybe they meant out of posing. I don't know.
It says AutoPhysics.
Okay, but out of physics.
Don't you hate when you
on the secondary motion can be applied to the face, but we don't plan it too much for now because, well, first we need to get onto the just add facial animation, which is a really big discussion inside. How we have we discussed it several times already, did some research, and they're like facial rigs are very different. They're much less standardized, at least to the extent that I know about them, than like the character rigs with the bones and stuff. And so it's really a question how to cover different facial rigs.
I'm thinking it's like the face being
And-
so heavy with the blend shapes. You know, it's like affects the rest of the
Well,
body.
Sometimes it's with blend shapes, sometimes it's with joints, and before going into MetaHuman from Unreal Engine, then it's I think they have like DNA nodes that I think they're more about joints, but if I remember correctly, they actually use some machine learning techniques inside to get the final topology of the face, to get the final mesh of the face. So there are a lot of different approaches, and it's hard to say how to approach this correctly. And I think we first have to finish with that, and only then think about AutoPhysics for the face. So yeah. But someday, yeah. I think it mostly means you have to simulate like fat, muscle, and other materials, which is pretty far away from the physics tools that we are creating right now.
Okay, cool. Back to Roman. Scene linking.
Right. So the scene linking tool. So if you used the scene linking tool previously in Cascadeur, the options weren't that great. Well, I mean, they weren't that plentiful. So now we have 3 more things to add to your arsenal. So let's first things first, the usual, the color. You can change the color of the meshes in the linked scene. As you can see, I'm selecting color green, and red line right here, she's colored green. Wow.
If Redline were
offset.
colorblind, she would not know the difference. Sorry,
I
Redline,
guess.
color green.
Red line, yeah. Green line, whatever. So offset is the whatchamacallit, the vector value by which you offset the
Sorry, let me hide the camera so you would, yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So the offset value is the vector value by which you offset the meshes in the linked scene. So for example, if I were to what you have, the x. So if I were to offset the linked scene red line by 100 centimeters, as you can see, she is offset. Well, let's offset her a bit more, 500. Yeah. And the thing is, the interesting thing, if we were to so see how this scene looks right now, if we were to switch to this scene linked scene, you can see that although something's happening. What has happened actually? When you switch to the linked scene, you can see that the composition of the scene is, well, it's all kind of sort of the same, but not exactly, because you can see the grid and the camera have been moved accordingly to the offsets value. So that's a feature, that's not a bug. And the same goes for the offset rotation. So for example, if I were to offset the 180 degrees on y-axis.
Do something in between so we
see-
could see that the scene like 45 degrees or something like this. You'd see the grid rotating 45 degrees as
Yeah. Oh, all right. 45 degrees. 45 degrees. Here we go.
The grid
And-
won't rotate because the grid is always shown for the current scene.
yes, but also
you mean
you-
when you switch between the scenes?
yeah.
it will rotate.
Also, you do not have to switch. You can double click on the characters in the scene and switch between them.
Yep. That is well, that was a feature as far as I remember in the previous.
I think the offset
Cascadeur
was there
release.
as well already, but we added rotation offset and we added time offset.
Frame shift, yeah.
Frame shift.
Before it was not possible to rotate, and also before that, if you were to go to the scene which is linked, but it's not the main scene, you would just see that scene without any connections. So now it's actually you're linking scenes, and you can view the same general scene from any perspective there. All right,
Yep.
good.
Yeah, and let's open some scenes with the animation. We're using the sample scenes. So I'm linking backflip animation to Drag Xbox cycle. So as you can see, they're both linked. The next feature, next thing is frame shift. What is exactly frame shift? It shifts the animation on the timeline by an exact amount of frames. So for example, if I were to insert, let's say 10, you can see the pose has changed. The pose of this Dracorex. You can see. Actually, let's do the other way around. Let's connect this little guy to the backflip, and then do the frame.
You could
here.
could have just pasted a negative number there, and it would have the same effect without having to relink the scenes. So
Yeah,
this offset can be negative.
I was just about to talk about that. Anyway, well, as you can see, the frame shift is visible. You can offset slightly your animation if it starts later, or if it has to start earlier, you can input a negative number. So then, as you can see, if I were to hang on a second, something is amiss.
No, but you just don't see it that well because it's
Just 10 frames?
no. I think it doesn't change here. Yes.
Again.
No. What do you expect from it? Okay.
I expect that the animation would start playing at frame 10. Now all of
Can
them
you
are
can you go
playing
can you switch can you go to like frame 25 and now switch to the other scene?
Uh-huh.
And is it on 25 as well?
It is.
Okay, this does seem like a bug, to be honest.
What
We
we're talking
found one!
about,
We found one!
catching bugs in the night. Not the ones underneath your fridge, the ones in the Cascadeur program.
Catching bugs IRL on stream. There was a question, by the way, where this scene linking could be useful, and I can give my own example that I'm working on a scene where there's like a stage with multiple musicians there. And it's a cool idea to just keep your workspace very clean. I mean, to work on each musician's animation separately, but then sort of like put them together in a single scene, just rotate them around and make sure you add little touches to the animation so there would be like eye contact between the musicians or, some interactions there. So it's almost like you have your separate scenes which are convenient to work with separately, but, you would not have to deal with 100 of tracks in a single scene. So it simplifies the process, and it gives you, now with the tools, it gives you much more control over how you place, how you arrange your animation and stuff like this. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, it works for me. I don't
Very
know.
nifty.
I'll have to look into that later.
You told me to download the latest build, so it's probably not the...
It's the builds are the same. I don't know. We'll have to... Okay, let's not waste time now. We have like
guys,
25 minutes.
Yeah. Anyway,
I wanted to add a bit about the Lincoln scene and where you can potentially use it. But by the way, we do have some additional optimization in this release, which if you have a very long scene, which is now that we have unbaking and we kind of work towards making Cascadeur better for editing mockup animation and asset animation, and especially mockup animation, which tends to be really long, sometimes like thousands of frames. this optimization actually allows us to work on the visible timeline, interpolate only on the visible timeline, and that really increases the speed. Although it was pretty decent, to be honest, even before. But on very long animation, it starts to hurt, especially when you insert the frames. But what I wanted to get to is that if you have a lot of characters, like 10 characters, and they're all in one scene, probably they do not interact all with each other. We had cases like that, and that's why we created this link scenes, not only to separate the tracks, although that was actually a very nice side effect. But if your scenes are really heavy, there are a lot of characters in one scene, you can actually do them in separate scenes with, I don't know, 2 characters per scene or 3 characters per scene that actually interact with each other, and those that do not actively interact with each other, they're in separate scenes, and you link them together, and you will not have any you will not have any performance issues this way, because in the scene linking tool, all we do is just render all the scenes together, but actually they are separated. They cannot affect each other, but that's why they can calculate much faster.
And for that, there's a question: how many characters were stress tested on Cascadeur before it crashed? I know that was the number was mentioned to me a long time ago, but I know that there was a pretty hefty scene with really a lot of them.
I don't know, like 16 maybe. I remember I kept importing.
But did it crash?
The scene
or did it run?
I think it will run, but very slowly. I don't know. At some point, you will just overflow the memory, so it will depend on RAM. And Cascadeur is pretty RAM intensive, so.
By the way, about RAM, previously you could only cap it at 16 gigabytes, and now you could set it up all to 256. Yeah, you can do that in the settings window. You can check out this max RAM usage. You can cap it to, it's 1 gigabyte is like 1,000, so you would set it to 256,000.
Oh my god, there's so much RAM for me to buy now.
Why?
Yeah, you can download some RAM.
Ah, that too. Okay.
Yeah. Should we continue? Should I continue?
I could just set the number to 256,000 and just brag about it.
Yep. Okay. We need to accelerate. So anyway, previously in the previous version, if you wanted to check the fulcrum points, whether lit up or not, you could do that with the physics character turned off in turning on the AutoPhysics. Now there is a little nifty button called Show Fulcrum Points. It does exactly that. You can see the AutoPhysics aren't turned on, but you can still see the fulcrum points.
Keep it on
Next
the right
one.
a little bit. Yes.
Gosh darn it.
You're welcome.
See?
I'll be right back, guys. 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next thing, quite big, medium size. We have in the Compy tools, we now support a pivot mode. So previously there was a pivot mode, fixed and moving in the interval edit mode. Now it's also in the Compy tools as well, the same fixed pivot mode. How does it work? What can you do with it? So for example, I have, actually, how exactly does it work? So with the moving pivot mode, it's turned on by default. When you are copying an animation relative to some pivot, and actually you can turn on this relative to pivot mode, it essentially copies the animation relative to a pivot on all of the selected frames. So if I were to, like, for example, have some cube flying around and another object like a locator placed in the center of the scene, if I were to select the cube, select the whole animation, Actually, what would I? Well,
You
anyway,
can demonstrate, I
it-
think, on the.
which-
You can just select the point controllers.
yeah,
And
okay. Let's do that real quick.
no, you. Okay. No, you don't have to do that. I think you can demonstrate it on the initial scene as well. Just select all of them. Okay. Just select.
So what's
Okay.
okay? Select.
Yeah. Suppose you wanna keep one of the points still. You can now right-click on one of the feet and set pivot to the feet. And now, if you press copy interval, edit copy interval, or Control Shift D,
Yeah.
and now you turn. Now you copied all the points positions in every frame relative to the right foot point. And now, if you turn it off and paste it,
Paste interval, right?
paste interval, yeah,
Yep.
it will stay in place because we pasted relative to the we pasted relative to the pivot, but the pivot is now not moving in each frame differently, but it is the same in all the frames. There were just examples when you wanted to make this is actually the scenario why we created it. And before we had some examples, and I think it was even several times where there were frames and you just wanted to keep something still against some point, and to do that you had to create some locators, etc. There was even a script, I think, which is probably even more handy, but we thought that we could just very easily add this option, which is for some reason present in the interval edit mode, but not present in the copy paste tool. And yeah, and then we could just do it in a couple of clicks.
Or you could do crazy stuff with trajectories, like changing the trajectories depending on, like, relative to a single trajectory or something like this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. As you can see, we've just turned the in-place animation into a moving one simply by copying pasting the trajectories of all of the points relative to the specific point of the foot, which is supposed to be stationary on the ground. And the same way, you can turn the moving animation into a stationary one. It's also very easy. So you select all of the points, you copy, for example, I want to set the pivot as the stationary point. I do don't forget to turn on moving pivot mode. You do copy interval and then switch it so it's fixed pivot mode, paste interval. And now the animation is, well, it's a moving one. It works better if we were to use the pivot on something on the ground, like, you know, some characters have a proper root joint placed on the ground. This one doesn't have it. Well, anyway, you get the idea.
You can copy and paste it, by the way, excluding the y-axis in the settings.
Oh yeah, that's a good
I wouldn't
thing.
say we bring the entry level boundary to entry level bar to the animation too much with this tools, which are kind of complicated.
That's the beauty of it. Come on, is like, yes, it's accessible, but then you can go into as much detail as you want. You know, that's the beauty of it, isn't it?
Yeah, that's.
By the way,
that's
there was
thing.
a question.
That's cool.
So pivot is frame dependent.
Guys, since we've been talking about the fulcrum points, may I just quickly show the how we can the fulcrum motion cleaning tool?
Go ahead.
Yeah. I
Okay.
just wanted to answer the question. There was a question: is pivot frame dependent? Yeah. So with this setting in the copy tool, you can make the pivot frame dependent or not, based on this setting.
Oh, let me see. Is it in the project or is it in the? I think it's in autosaves. Just give me a sec. Okay. There is a fly on my screen, and it kind of bothers me, to be honest. But I hope you guys don't see it. Stairs. I think it was called stairs. Yes. Okay. So with regards to the fulcrum cleaning tool, right? So we can have I'm going to show you a very simple example first, I think, which will be, I think, this. Just if you have any little animation, any kind of animation here. So for example, the character is walking. Here, it's not a big deal. I mean, let's zoom into this interval real quick by pressing F6. So imagine like the way it worked before. So first you can display the fulcrum points as all right, so when you load up an old scene, it's actually a very good idea to make sure it's updated. So you go into the rig mode real quick and then go back, so it builds all the necessary connections, updates the rig and stuff like this. So you do really want to do this. So once done, we can display the fulcrum points separately without having to turn on physics on, just like this. And this way we do see the fulcrum points. And just for the sake of this is pretty clean animation. I mean, nothing really terrible is going on, like the feet are not falling through the ground, but let's make them fall through the ground, shall we? So we just take this all animation and put it, say, below the surface. Now you can see it's like under the floor. Now, if we turn on the fulcrum motion cleaning, it will keep the feet above the ground. And again, before that, and come on, we need to select the interval on which it's going to work, like this. So now the feet do not fall through the ground. And actually, in general, this whole the tool of fulcrum motion cleaning works much more precisely than it used to be before, because before that it would result in like some stretching. It would be too harsh, I think, but now it's much more precise. But not only that, say we have this kind of animation where we have, you know, different collision objects, right? Each of those stairs is actually has a collider to it, so it's a collision object, and we can select all our animation, zoom into the feet, make sure we see that, yeah, they collide with it, so they have those fulcrum points there. And once we apply fulcrum motion cleaning, it will level the feet to the stairs. Yep, and there you have it. I think it's yep. Go ahead.
And this new functionality is covered by if you turn on settings, scene settings, and there will be a section called
fulcrum motion cleaning.
Fulcrum motion cleaning, yeah, and you have some settings. I think if you turn off everything, you will get the same fulcrum motion cleaning you in previous version, and now there's a set of enhancements. And by the way, I think you don't have to create individual colliders for
the stairs?
Stairs like this. Yes, we now have mesh colliders.
That was another thing I noticed.
I forgot to mention that, by the way, in the change.
So you just import the mesh, and then in the colliders, you go to commands, collision, you can add box, which was something that I did for this particular scene. So I added box collider to each stair, but now you can have add mesh to add geometric collider to it. Nice. By the way, there is this something I wanted to mention. It says one of the settings goes use T-pose height, right? So it's very much important that when you go when you rig your character, right? So you go into the rig mode, that it takes this information, the height of this value actually from the rig mode. So if your character is rigged correctly here, so this is the height that it would want to preserve, just as in a T-pose when you are rigging the character. And another thing to mention is that if for you want to I know it doesn't really matter, but yeah, so make sure that the the T-pose is aligned to the floor correctly. So this is the value it's gonna take into consideration when correcting the fulcrum, aligning fulcrums to surfaces and to the ground, right?
Yeah.
Which is really nice because I remember that. Yeah, go ahead.
It's also used in autopose and the T-pose a lot, so the T-pose is intended to be a T-pose. Although we are much less... autopose now should work, starting from this release, should work much better with less standard position of clavicle bones and the neck bones and head bones, which I think made it work much worse on different skeletons, which are we call them non-standard, but I understand they're different standards. But ours is closer to Unreal Engine, which are really different. It didn't work that well. Now it should work for most of the characters.
Okay. There was a question, by the way, about the constraints. So Solid Cloud was asking, out of curiosity, any plans to add quick constraint options that could be toggled for making hands follow weapons? You have a lot of tutorials on the setup for one-handed and two-handed weapons. Yeah, just wondering. I think something, I'll quickly mention this, and then Alex, you could probably add something to it, is that, constraints have always been a gimmick, for any kind of, in pretty much everywhere. But what stands out here is that I think we worked so hard to simplify, things, to make them visual, to make them accessible, right? So the constraint workflow, it feels like a little bit old school, to be honest. So it doesn't really showcase on the viewport, so you don't really see the constraints on the timeline. So there's definitely a level of improvement, and especially the visual improvements that we can bring to it, right? So I would say that it's a powerful tool, but it lacks in accessibility. So, and I think it's been mentioned multiple times. It's been brought up multiple times. So there's definitely in the works, right, of trying to simplify the constraints.
Mm-hmm.
Alex, do you agree?
Well, yeah. Although, let me check the original question.
So it's like having a button to toggle the constraints, something to make a quick constraint to a weapon or something.
Yeah, but I don't really. Yeah, well, I think I do agree with Solid Cloud that we could add for the weapons, we could add default default created constraints or something like that. Because right now, yeah, I think you do have to do it by hand. By the way, we do have a visual representation. If something is constrained, I think there's like a red circle around that point. We don't have it on timeline for now. And I think it's not possible to have it on timeline for everything, because if we do it on the timeline, then it will be... It's like the timeline will be crowded with these things. But I think we had the idea that if you select an object and... the idea is not finished, but if you select an object, then the parents, like the drivers that are active during each interval should be written like right now we have IKFK written.
Same way, look, that could be the thing. It could be some sort of like a filter that you can turn on for, you know, the timeline to show where the constraints are, because look, they can be active on frames and they also can be activated on intervals as well. So it would be nice to see that, for example, this you know, the right hand is like constrained to this weapon, say on this amount of frames and this amount of intervals, right? So it's some sort of like visual representation. Also think about this when we have, you know, switching between, you know, different constraints. We now have to switch different indexes, right? And now as of now we have to like put in like index 1 or index 0 or index 2, right? So it could just might as well just be buttons where you can, you know, you can toggle them and just make it a little bit more accessible.
Yeah, I can give some in-depth information. So actually, we had like a really big, I'm using this word again, refactoring of the property editor, and the state of the code in the property editor before, it just was, it had too much of what's called a technical debt. It had too much technical debt to actually develop it further, and now that it has a much better architecture, we will be slowly, or not that slowly, adding some features. And the drop downs you're talking about for constraints are one of those features.
Okay. Breast physics. There's a question about breast physics. Can we make a tutorial on them? On them breasties?
I don't know. Will YouTube shadow ban us?
No, but there's also like multiple of them, you know, from Blender and stuff like this. Well, not from Blender, but I think using Blender.
I think we could at some point easily. And there's also a question whether maybe we should like add breasts in the quick rigging tool. Actually, I think that is also possible. Maybe not only... Okay, I think breasts for sure. Maybe not only breasts. I don't know what...
Speaking about the last thumbnail we used, yay.
Yes, I think there is actually different tutorial videos in Discord covering these topics. I'm not sure they're up to date, to be honest, but...
Join our Discord! Yep, okay.
Yeah, I remember we did cover that to an extent. Here I'm really not sure how the YouTube algorithm works, so stop me, Max, if...
No, I'm not gonna stop you, come on.
Okay, yeah, belly physics, I agree.
I love it, like the covert stuff. You can showcase it as belly physics demo for safety.
Yeah.
That would be fat shaming, no? Like we'll fall under so many categories with that. Could potentially do.
Okay, I think we could cover that.
But I think that's the same thing as with...
one of the things we have that is like our weak points is that we don't produce tutorials fast enough on one hand, and the software right now is like adding some features rather quickly, so it's hard to... I mean, if you go 2 years, I think we redid all the tutorials, all the simple tutorials, the short ones, like 1-2 minutes, and they're so outdated now, so yeah. We really have to be more, I don't know, fast with the tutorials and stuff.
But I think there is a lot going on to, producing those tutorials, because I think in general, our goal is to keep any tutorial sort of like very much beginner friendly. So, and we get into, so at times we get into like over explaining in each tutorial, all the basic stuff as well. So we could have like separate ones that probably are made a little bit more, I don't want to say roughly, but maybe straight to the point. That could also simplify the process. But yeah. People are talking about a chubby dog.
Yeah.
Tutorials team, quick, drop everything you have right now in the works. We need to make this one particular tutorial about a chubby dog. Don't ask why, don't ask what, just do it.
A chubby dog with breasts. Oh. But yeah, and by the way, something to mention. Everything that most of the stuff we mentioned today in this stream, we will post tutorials on pretty much covering all the updates, and we will do this within the next couple of weeks, I guess, if we're lucky. But more tutorial. There's definitely things to look out for in terms of that kind of content. So yep. More is coming up. So guys, I hope you are all excited about the new features, because I think we are very much, and there's definitely ways to grow and ways to, things to improve, augment, implement and stuff like this. But I guess it's quite an update. What do you guys think?
It is. Just a quick note, again, for all of you viewers watching our stream. Thank you, by the way, if you were able to watch all of these, 2 hours of our stream. Thank you very much, and to the viewers who are going to be watching this video, like a recorded stream, thank you as well. So today we weren't able to talk about all of the features in the upcoming 2024.2 version. If there is anything that you're interested in or do not understand, again, we're going to be producing tutorials. Documentation is there. Although I must warn you that documentation is not going to be like up to date. Like not going to be included on the day of the release. We're going to be gradually updating and adding all of the stuff that's missing and needs updating. And as always, if you have any particular questions, whether is it about specific tools or features in Cascadeur, or is it about scene that you have and you don't know how to approach it, visit our Discord server. And leave your question. We'll try our best to help you.
And I think there's a lot
That's
of
right.
information there, just in general, and people sharing their scenes. And we have also a GPT bot, right, that can help you navigate the documentation quickly. So you can.
It also looks through the previous questions and tries to find something similar and base its answer off of that. Although it doesn't work as good, because I think we have a lot of times we have like print screens, scenes, videos, and yeah. AI is not covering that part. Yeah, but thank you everyone for watching.
Yeah, thank you all, and thank you guys for joining. And Alex, very nice to see you here. I hope you join other streams as well, because we can go very much in depth of the technical stuff as well.
Not too often though, not to scare off all the audience.
I enjoyed, and yeah, see you in the next one, I guess. And don't forget to to update your Cascadeur tomorrow.
Yep.
Okay? Yep. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.
Bye bye.